Picture this. It is 6:30 in the morning, and I am sitting on a plastic chair outside a little bakery in Tagaytay with a paper cup of coffee between my hands. The air is cool enough that I can see a little steam coming off it. A tricycle rattles past. Somewhere down the road, somebody is sweeping leaves with one of those stiff handmade brooms. I can smell bread, diesel, wet concrete, and something sweet frying in oil. And I am thinking about the man who stole $17,000 from me. Not a stranger, not some slick guy who found me online. My best friend, the man I had known for 36 years. That is the part I have never really known how to explain to people. They hear the number first, $17,000. Then they hear where it happened, the Philippines. And they think they already know the story. Old American goes overseas, trusts the wrong person, gets cleaned out, crawls home embarrassed, except I did not go home. I stayed. My name is Walter Mercer. I'm 70 years old. I grew up outside Dayton, Ohio, and I spent most of my working life repairing commercial refrigeration systems. Grocery stores, restaurants, warehouses, anywhere there was a compressor humming behind a wall, there was a chance I had worked on it. I was never rich. I was careful. There's a difference. I had a paid-off house, a union pension, Social Security, and a savings account I had built by saying no to things for 40 years. New trucks, boats, fancy vacations. I kept my tools longer than anybody else. I packed lunch. I fixed my own mower. By the time I retired, I thought I had done everything right. Then my wife, Linda, died. Cancer, 11 months from diagnosis to funeral. People talk about grief like it is this giant wave that hits you all at once. Mine was quieter than that. It was more like somebody had gone through the house and removed the sound. No television in the other room, no cabinet doors opening, no voice asking if I wanted anything from the store. Just the refrigerator kicking on and off in a house that suddenly felt 3 times too big. My daughter, Emily, wanted me to sell the place and move closer to her in Columbus. She meant well. She had 2 kids, a job, a husband who traveled. She said I could get a condo 10 minutes away. I looked at condos. I looked at senior communities. I even toured one of those places where they have a little dining room and a calendar full of activities taped beside the elevator. Bingo on Tuesday, chair yoga on Thursday, movie night on Friday. I remember standing there thinking, I am 68 years old. Is this it? That sounds ungrateful. I know. But grief had already taken my wife. I was scared that if I made the safe decision, it was going to take the rest of me in smaller pieces. That was when my friend Dale started calling more often. Dale and I had met when we were both apprentices. He was louder than me, better with people, always the guy who could talk us into getting another round after work. We hunted together for years. Our wives knew each other. He helped me replace my roof. I helped him through a divorce. If you had asked me who I trusted most after Linda died, other than my daughter, I would have said Dale without even thinking. He had moved to the Philippines 2 years earlier. Tagaytay. He sent me pictures from a balcony overlooking green hills and gray-blue water, plates of grilled fish, fresh mango, a little rental house with a tiled floor, and a garden. He told me he was spending less than half what he had spent back in Indiana. At first I treated it like one of Dale's phases. He had always been a man of phases. Motorcycles, woodworking, gold coins. For about 6 months, he was convinced he was going to learn Spanish. Then one night he called while I was sitting alone at my kitchen table and said, "Walt, you sound like you're waiting to die." That made me angry, mostly because it was close enough to the truth. I tried everything before I made the move. I joined a church breakfast group. I went back to part-time work for a friend. I visited Emily Moore. I took a fishing trip to Tennessee with 2 guys I had known for years. Nothing was bad. That was almost the problem. Nothing was bad, and nothing felt alive. So I started watching videos. One video became 10, 10 became 50. Americans talking about retirement in the Philippines, cost of living, health care, visas, rent, traffic, humidity, good neighborhoods, bad landlords, people telling you not to buy property you could not legally own, people warning you not to become the walking ATM for everybody you met. I read expat forums until 2 in the morning. I joined Facebook groups. Half the people in those groups seemed angry at each other, but buried underneath all that arguing was useful information. What got me was not the guys bragging about living like kings. It was the ordinary ones, retired teachers, truck drivers, mechanics, a postal worker from Wisconsin, people with normal pensions saying, "I am not rich here. I just breathe easier." I flew over for a 3-week visit before I committed to anything. That mattered to me. I did not sell my house first. I did not wire my life savings to anybody. I did not decide I was in love with the country after 48 hours. I came to look. Dale met me at the airport with a ridiculous straw hat on his head and a sign that said, "Walter the Explorer." That was Dale. For 3 weeks, he showed me around. Tagaytay surprised me. I had expected heat that would flatten me the second I stepped outside. Instead, the mornings were cool. The hills were green. Some afternoons came with fog. I could sit outside with coffee and not feel like I was melting. We ate bulalo near Mahogany Market. I bought pineapple from a roadside stand. We drove past little bakeries, hardware stores, sari-sari shops, schools, churches, and houses tucked behind concrete walls. It did not feel like a resort. That was exactly why I liked it. I went back to Ohio, sold the house 6 months later, gave most of my furniture to Emily, and kept enough in storage that I could return without starting from zero. I told myself I was being cautious, and for a while I was. My first rental in Tagaytay was a furnished 2-bedroom place on a quiet side street, 28,000 pesos a month. At the exchange rate then, it was roughly $490. $490. Back home, the condo I had looked at near Emily would have been more than 3 times that before utilities and fees. The house was not fancy. The kitchen cabinets were a little crooked. The shower pressure had moods. There was a gecko that appeared on the wall every evening like he was checking on me. But I had a small covered porch. I had room to breathe. I could hear roosters in the morning and rain hammering the metal awning in the afternoon. For the first time since Linda died, I started sleeping through the night. My first month there, I kept a little notebook on the kitchen counter because I did not trust my own sense of what things cost yet. Rent, electricity, groceries, transportation, eating out. I wrote everything down in dollars and pesos. A breakfast that might have cost me $12 or $15 back home was a few dollars. A tricycle ride across town was less than I used to spend on a cup of gas station coffee. Some things were more expensive than I expected, especially imported food and anything that reminded Americans of home. But the basics were manageable. And there was another thing that did not fit neatly into the notebook. People noticed you. The woman at the bakery remembered I took my coffee without sugar. The guard near the grocery store would nod when I came through. A fruit seller started setting aside ripe mangoes because he knew I did not like them too firm. After months of feeling invisible in my own house in Ohio, those tiny recognitions mattered more than they probably should have. I was not pretending I belonged yet, but I was beginning to feel expected. Dale lived about 15 minutes away. At first it felt like we were 25 again. We would meet for breakfast, drive down toward the lake, sit around talking about people we used to work with. He introduced me to other retirees, locals he knew, a mechanic he trusted, a woman who helped me figure out where to pay one of my utility bills. He made the whole move feel easier. That is why the scam worked. People imagine scams are always built on greed. Mine was built on history. About 4 months after I arrived, Dale told me about a small rental business he was putting together. Nothing huge, he said. A few furnished units leased long-term, then rented to short-stay visitors through a local operator. He said he already had 2 units. He showed me numbers. Not outrageous numbers either. That was clever. He did not promise to double my money. He said I could earn a modest monthly return and get my principal back within 18 months if I wanted out. I told him no, 3 times. The first time I said I did not mix money and friendship. The second time I said I was still learning the country. The third time he laughed and said, "Walt, I changed your roof in February. You think I'm going to run off with your money now?" I can still hear him saying that. I know. Famous last words. The amount started at $5,000. Then he said a 3rd unit had become available and the owner wanted several months paid in advance. I put in another 12. $17,000 total. I transferred it in 2 parts. I had paperwork, I had messages, I had screenshots. I had the confidence that comes from knowing somebody longer than some marriages last. For 2 months, I received payments, small ones, right on time. Then the 3rd month came and Dale said the operator was late. The 4th month, he said there had been damage to 1 unit. The 5th month, he stopped answering in full sentences. That was when my stomach changed. Anybody who has ever lost money knows what I mean. Before you know for sure, your body knows. You wake up at 3 in the morning and your mind starts doing arithmetic. 17,000, minus the 2 small payments, plus whatever legal fees, plus the cost of going home if everything falls apart. You open old messages and read them like there is going to be a sentence you missed the first 8 times. I drove to the address of one of the rental units. There was no unit. Not his, anyway. The building existed, but the property manager had never heard of Dale. The photos he had shown me were from a listing online. I sat in my car with the air conditioning running and stared at my phone. I called him. No answer. I called again. No answer. Then I sent 1 message. "Dale, I went there," he replied about 20 minutes later. Walt, let me explain. That sentence ended 36 years of friendship. He came to my house that evening. He looked older than he had that morning. He told me the business had been real at first. He had put money into something similar through another man. He lost it, then he borrowed. Then he used my money to cover what he owed and told himself he would replace it before I noticed. Maybe some of that was true. Maybe none of it was. By then I did not care. I asked him 1 question. "Did you know those pictures weren't yours when you showed them to me?" He looked at the floor. That was my answer. I wish I could tell you I threw him out with some perfect line. I did not. I just opened the door. He stood there for a few seconds, then walked out. The next morning, I booked a flight back to Ohio. One way, I was done. That is the part people do not expect. I absolutely was going home. I felt humiliated. Not because I had lost $17,000. The money hurt, but I could survive it. I was humiliated because I had become the story I thought I was too smart to become. I had read all the warnings. I had watched all the videos. I had told myself I was cautious. Then I handed money to the 1 person I never thought I needed to investigate. Emily did not say I told you so. That somehow made it worse. She said, "Dad, come home. We will figure it out." I packed 2 suitcases. I gave notice on the rental. I spent 3 days barely leaving the house. Then something strange happened. People started showing up, not in some dramatic movie way. Little things. My neighbor, Lito, knocked because he had not seen me outside and brought over a container of pancit his wife had made. The woman at the bakery asked why I had stopped coming in the morning. A retired Australian guy named Peter called and said he heard I was leaving and wanted to buy me lunch. My landlord came by to return part of a deposit earlier than he was required to because he knew I was upset. None of these people owed me anything, and none of them were Dale. That distinction started bothering me. I had been telling myself the Philippines was a mistake. But the Philippines had not taken my money. Dale had. A man from Indiana I had known for 36 years. That is not the same story. 2 days before my flight, I drove up to a viewpoint early in the morning. The sky was pale and washed out. The air smelled like rain. Far off I could see the lake through the haze. I sat there and asked myself a question that I think changed the rest of my life. If Dale had scammed me in Ohio, would I leave Ohio? Of course not. So why was I giving him the power to decide where I spent my retirement? I canceled the flight, lost some money on that too. I called Emily and told her I was staying. There was a long silence. Then she said, "Are you sure this is about what you want and not about proving something?" Good question. I told her I did not know. So I gave myself 6 months. No investments, no loans, no rescuing anybody, no financial deals with friends, just 6 months of living. That was almost 2 years ago. I am still here. I moved to a smaller one-bedroom place after the first lease ended. I pay 23,000 pesos a month now. I cook more than I used to. I walk most mornings. I know which market stall gives me the good tomatoes and which one tries to hand me the soft ones from the back. I have friends here, real friends, I think. But I use that word differently now. Trust is not the same as access. That was the lesson. You can care about somebody and still ask for paperwork. You can believe somebody is decent and still refuse to mix your savings with their plans. You can be generous without becoming available for every emergency. I had spent most of my life thinking suspicion was the opposite of friendship. It is not. Boundaries are not suspicion. Sometimes boundaries are what let a friendship stay a friendship. I never recovered most of the money. Dale sent me $2,000 about 8 months later. No note, just a transfer and a message that said he was trying. I did not answer. A few months after that, I heard he had left Tagaytay. I do not know where he is now. Sometimes I think about calling him. Then I remember myself sitting in that car outside the building that was supposed to contain my investment, reading his message. "Walt, let me explain. There are explanations that make something understandable. There are very few that make it undone. The $17,000 changed me, but not in the way I expected. I thought it would make me harder. Instead, it made me more precise. I pay attention. I ask questions. I keep money boring. I do not invest in stories, especially good ones. And I do not confuse one person's betrayal with an entire country. That last part matters. Because if I had gone home, I probably would have told people the Philippines did not work out. That would have been easier than saying my best friend fooled me. But it would not have been true. This place did work out, not perfectly. I still miss Linda every day. I still hate paperwork. Traffic can make me lose my religion. There are mornings when I wonder what I am doing 6,000 miles from my daughter and grandkids. Then Emily video calls me and complains that it is freezing in Ohio, and I turn the phone around so she can see sunlight on the porch. I go back twice a year. My grandkids think the geckos are hilarious. Emily came here last Christmas. She sat on my porch with a cup of coffee and finally said, "Okay, Dad, I get it." That meant more to me than she knew. So now I am back where I started, 6:30 in the morning, plastic chair, coffee warming my hands, a tricycle rattling past, the bakery opening its doors. If you looked at me from across the street, you would probably see an old man sitting alone. But I do not feel alone. That is the difference. I lost $17,000 because I trusted the wrong person. I nearly lost the life I had built because I blamed the wrong place. The money is gone. The friendship is gone. I stayed anyway. And every morning I sit here, I know exactly why.